Hello and welcome everyone to Better Business Together 2022, incorporating the EOA AGM. I'm Chair of the EOA Board, Chris McDermott, and we are broadcasting to you today from the EOA offices in East Yorkshire. Today we are very excited about sharing with you what we have achieved together in 2021. We'll be starting with outgoing EOA Chief Executive Deb Oxley, who will give you a strategic overview of where the association currently is, as well as some past highlights from last year. Then the chair of the EOA's Finance and Audit Committee, Joe Ritzema, will take us on a quick tour of how the EOA's robust financial position means that the association can invest significantly in a program of transformation. After those two sessions, Deb and I will be joined by some of the EOA team, and we will be here to answer questions that you may have about last year's performance. And then we will move on to vote onto the resolution to welcome 3 new directors to the EOA board. And I'm really pleased to say that Lisa and Laura will be supporting me through that process. And then we will all have the chance to hear from Deb on her reflections at 10 years at the Employee Ownership Association. This will then make a really nice segue into the first opportunity for you to hear from our new CEO, James de Levine, who will share with us the opportunities he sees for the EOA and the sector. Then James and I will be in conversation, and we will try and field as many of your questions as we can about the association's direction of travel and the challenges and opportunities we might face along the way. And to finish all of that off, we'll look forward to seeing you all for a bit of virtual networking, where we'll be able to join other members of the EOA board, the EOA Membership Council, the EOA team, and of course, probably most crucially, you'll be able to see each other and talk to each other for about 30 minutes, have good chats and good conversations. Now, before we get cracking, I really just like to take this opportunity to thank Field Fisher, and in particular, Tom Martin, for the continued pro bono support they provide the EOA in relation to formal governance matters. Now, you can post your questions in the Q&A box, and you also have the ability in there to upvote the favorite questions that you see, and we'll try and get through as many of those as we can in the time that we have today. Now, if you have any technical issues, you can use the chat function, but please only use that chat function for that purpose, and don't pop any of your questions into there, because otherwise I might start answering technical questions about Windows updates, which probably is not a good use of time. Okay, so now I'm very excited to be able to hand over to Deb, then Joe, after which we'll be back to take as many of your questions that we can and look and review about the year.
Thanks, Chris. An important part of our AGM is to reflect on the previous year's achievements and our impact. So I'm delighted at my last EOA AGM to have been asked to share with you our highlights from 2021. Earlier this week, you should have received a link to our electronic annual review document, which provides more details of our impact and influence last year. But you can also find it on the website after the AGM if not. So let me pick out some of the highlights from a year of growth of our membership and our offer to you, our members, and of the sector and our influence within it. Let's start with our most important audience, you, the members. You'll hear from Joe soon about our financial performance last year, but one thing clear from her report is the continued growth in the number of UK businesses who are joining the EOA as members, either to learn and explore if employee ownership is right for them, or to continue to develop their own culture in order to drive the real benefits of employee ownership through their businesses. This community of over 550 businesses is what the EOA membership's biggest strength is as an organisation, and this was demonstrated clearly during 2021, with over 100 introductions made by the team between members for specific reasons, in addition to the 2,000 users of the EO Hub who regularly connect and network with each other. Our engagement with you also meant that over 800 of you joined at least one of our virtual networking events during 2021, and a further 1,600 of you viewed the content afterwards. And with the editorial talents of our new colleague, John Matos, who joined us in November, our storytelling and content looks set to develop even further in the future. And although we're all now absolutely desperate for face-to-face events, during 2021, with the enforced distancing still in place, we were still able to attract over 780 of you to our larger signature events of the annual conference and the Robert Oakeshott Lecture online. With our membership colleague team now strengthened, with Head of Membership Ollie Smith being rejoined by Hannah Welsh, who's returned from maternity leave, and with new colleagues Jonathan Scott and Leslie Robinson, the EOA is now well-resourced to continue to evolve and develop our member engagement and recruitment. And in response to the heightened demand for services, during the year we continued to evolve our offer to you. This included the continued hosting of our regular Trustee Director course for over 100 people during 2021, and with the support and help of the EOA Membership Council, the launch of a new leadership training course. In addition, after listening to your feedback, we also launched a new independent trustee search facility on the EO Hub, which is being both well used and being useful in equal measures. With the recent appointment of Yogi Johnston to a new role with responsibility for developing our products and services, and with the support of our other colleague Laura Withers, this growth of services, training and products for members is set to continue to develop in the future. Of course, much of the EOA's growth has been stimulated by the growth of the sector, and 2021 was another phenomenal year. In June, our partners RM2 and the White Rose Employee-Owned Centre reported the sector had grown to 730 employee-owned businesses, with a remarkable 210 EO transitions in the year, and that the combined sales of the top 50 largest employee-owned businesses grew by 6.4% year on year to £22 billion. Sadly, during 2021, we prematurely lost one of the EOA's largest names, Nigel Mason. Nigel was a really good friend to the EOA, and although some of you may never have known him, he was a leading light in shaping the sector that we all enjoy today. And here at the EOA, we already miss him very much. One of the areas that Nigel would, however, have been very proud of was our ability to influence politically. So he would have been thrilled to hear about the success of the Ownership Hub, which EOA Head of Communications, Keely led, and her colleague Ross Herring helped launch in South Yorkshire in June last year with our partners, Cooperatives UK. Supported by the South Yorkshire elected Mayor Dan Jarvis, this is the first regional spoke of this innovative national model to grow the number of employee-owned and worker-owned businesses, in direct support of the government's levelling up agenda. The EOA has spearheaded this initiative, supported by local EOA members in the South Yorkshire region, and we hope to see more English regions coming on stream during 2022 and 2023. Another key influencing agenda for us during the year has been to ensure that we are doing our utmost to protect the integrity and therefore the sustainability of the EOT model. You will have read of the recent recommendations made by the Chartered Institute of Taxation to tighten the rules and ways in which EOTs are implemented, all of which the EOA supports and was instrumental in influencing via supporter members Pet Franklin and Field Fisher, who represented the EOA's views with the Chartered Institute of Tax. Lastly, in the area of partnerships, our ongoing influence and support of the devolved nations continued in 2021 with our engagement with Cooperative Development Scotland and the Scotland for Employee Ownership Leadership Group and the Wales Cooperative Centre. These collaborations are critical to each of the home nations and to the sector as a whole, as UK government policy on employee ownership affects every part of the UK. One impact as a team is underpinned by our finances, and as you will soon hear from Joe, we are delighted that our income grew again in 2021. through a diversifying combination of membership fees, services, and events. We are therefore incredibly thankful to Head of Operations Lisa Steele and our colleague Jo Linford for their efficient and reliable management of our financial transactions, along with Lisa's role as Company Secretary, which ensures the integrity of our governance, including the appointment of new directors, more of which you will hear about later. Finally, I want to thank the team personally for their resilience during the last year. Not only have they coped with new ways of working, occasional COVID outbreaks, and the planning for a new strategy and digital adoption, they've also dealt professionally and sensitively with the process of securing James as our new Chief Executive as I step down. Their enthusiasm for employee ownership, support of the change ahead, and passion for the EOA has been unwavering, and I am eternally grateful for their support over the last 12 months. I'm now going to pass back to Jo Ritzema, who will provide a summary of our financial performance last year before we take questions.
Good afternoon. My name is Jo Ritzema. I sit on the EOA board and I'm chair of the Finance and Audit Committee, alongside David Grimes of Parfits and Matthew Collins of Scott Barger, all of us qualified accountants. We provide external oversight of the financial results, as well as the processes behind those results, to give both the board and you as members reassurance in respect of the financial governance of the EOA to ensure that we are safeguarding its assets. I am delighted to report another strong financial performance for the year ended September 2021. Not only did the EOA deliver a surplus of £26,000 for the year, ahead of its budget, but crucially both diversified and increased its turnover. Revenue rose 22.5% on last year to almost £725,000. 76% of turnover continues to be received in the form of membership fees. In 2019-20, that was almost 82%, so we see a continued diversification of revenue away from member fees. There is a good mix of membership fees from the different member types. Today, trustee membership fees account for only 30% of total revenue. These changes can only increase our financial resilience as the breadth of our services and our membership widen. In 2021, we launched our range of online training, EO Learn, and generated over £70,000 in training revenue. For the current financial year, this is budgeted to rise to almost £120,000. From a cost perspective, almost 70% of our expenditure is salary. This supports the continued investment in our people as we seek to recruit and retain the talent we need to support our future growth. The EOA continues to recruit additional skills as the number of members, our reach, our influence, and the range of services we offer widen. We are investing in the personal development of our senior leadership team. 2021 saw additional consultancy fees as we work to agree the strategic direction of our digital transition. Thanks to our historic, diligent financial oversight, as well as the growth in the sector, the EOA had reserves of £334,000 at the end of September, as well as a healthy cash balance. Our financial strength allowed us to successfully navigate the pandemic whilst continuing to grow our offering. We have both the financial capability and the confidence to invest in our people and the systems we need to support the growth we are seeing across the sector. The Finance and Audit Committee will play a key role in ensuring that we get value for money for our investment to support the delivery of our overall strategic objectives. In respect of the current financial year, after 4 months, our surplus was 37% ahead of budget, thanks to a successful November conference, better than expected returns from EO Learn, and our continued prudence in cost management. I hope that this has given you a useful financial summary, and we'll be pleased to answer your questions later.
Great. Thank you, Deb and Jo, for that review of the year, as well as a review of our current financial position. Okay, so now it's time for your questions. And joining Deb and myself for this part is Head of Membership, Oliver Smith, Head of Communications and Marketing, Keely Led, and Jo Ritzema, Chair of the EOA Finance and Audit Committee, who you've just heard. So welcome everybody to this session.
Hi, Chris. Hi, everyone.
Well, I can see that there's a few questions coming in, so let's have a look and then see if we can dish these out a little bit. So, right. Okay, so the first question's for Joe. Joe, how important is it to diversify the EOA's income, and what could that look like? Over to you.
Okay, clearly the more income streams we have, the less reliant we are on pure member subscription, and therefore we're less likely to be impacted by a particular downturn. We also see a great opportunity to combine additional income streams by strengthening the member services through things such as training courses and personal development through membership as well. So it's a win-win.
Excellent. Thanks, Joe. Win-win. That sounds good. Right. I think the next question is for Ollie. As the EO sector grows at such a rapid pace, what plans does the EOA have for providing further training and resources to help EO businesses really flourish? And that was sent in from Barry Horner from Paradigm Norton. So thank you, Barry. Ollie, over to you.
Well, as we've heard, EO Learn that we started back in 2020 has grown from strength to strength with the introduction of the Employee, Trustee and Director course, which we're now hosting regularly. We brought in a second course around empowering the leaders within an employee-owned business, and that's going successfully as well. And we're also looking to bring in a course later on this year around employee voice, for those representatives that want to be at the front line of capturing the employee voice and being that representative body. So we're always looking to develop and enhance that EO Learn products and services that we have based on the needs of the members in order that we cater towards those needs.
Great. Thanks, Ollie, for that. Deb, one for you. Is there data to show that employee-owned businesses perform better than more conventionally owned businesses, or that they perform better post-transition than before? And this has come from Paul Currer from Currer and Currer.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Thanks for your question, Paul. Good question. I think many of you will remember we published the ownership dividend in 2018. There was a lot of qualitative data in there, so storytelling from lots of members, over 100 businesses contributed, and that told a story of I think productivity gains and profitability gains, and we heard about the whoosh effect actually that one business talked about. However, I think we recognise there is a gap in our evidence at the moment. I think there's a gap in two areas. One is around the benchmarking, so how can you as a sector learn from the outstanding performers within the sector about how to do things, and there's also a gap in the impact data. So what's the economic and social impact of employee ownership? And you'll hear more from James later about our plans in that space. So good question, Paul, and I think probably we'll constantly be wanting to strengthen our evidence base as we look to the future.
Brilliant, thank you. Thanks, Deb. So we've now got one for Keely. Keely, what are the key marketing objectives in attracting organisations to consider the employee ownership trust route? Keely, over to you.
Yeah, well, pretty much it's around targeting a greater percentage of businesses choosing employee ownership at the point of succession. With that said, there's been a more recent trend in also seen as target businesses choosing employee ownership as a sustainable business model to increase performance and growth. So we have a target to grow the number of employee owners that have employees that have a stake and a say in the place they work from 250,000 to 1 million by 2030. And we've got a number of ways we're trying to support that goal. And one of them is via the Ownership Hub project, which is working both nationally and in the regions to build partnerships. So we grow awareness and build knowledge in those regions. And through that, all this evidence that we're talking about, we'll be gathering that sort of in the regions and nationally, both the impact and the social value and the economic value of having more employee ownership, and that will allow us to influence and target that influencing. And of course, the other objectives is to get as many of those new employee-owned businesses into our membership, sharing best practice and insights, and adding to the body of evidence that we've already got, and therefore taking up the products and services and helping shape them as we go forward.
Keely, just to follow on question from there, how can EO businesses and members of the association, how can they access the ability to tell those stories? What have we got in the association that can help them do that?
Yeah, so there's a number of ways. One, you can just speak to us, and if you've got a story, you can even drop me an email. But we will be launching our story competition this year, EO Stories, and we'll be doing that in the week commencing the 11th of April. It was really successful last year. We had over 35 stories, 13 of them featured at our conference. We've had follow-up stories, top tips guides, we've had case studies, and all those stories have been thoroughly used to grow awareness. So we'd love people to take part in this year, and it's going to be under the theme of Good EO, so look out for that shortly.
Okay, that's very exciting. I certainly know those stories were very inspirational last year as they came through for the event. There were some great stories, and the way that some of the people were surprised by Deb, who turned up and spoke to them and got them really excited, was absolutely fantastic. Well, has anybody got any more questions? I've got my trusty iPad here to pick up any questions that have come through, and of course we've got them on the screen. It looks like we've exhausted the EO community on those questions, so I think we'll have to say thanks for everybody for participating. Deb, thank you very much. Joe, Ollie, and Keely, that's great. Thank you for your questions, and now we will move on to the rather more official part of the event, which is the vote on the resolution to ratify new board members. So thanks everybody. Right, so firstly, I would like to thank the EOA team and the entire EOA board for their commitment and hard work in 2021. Especially, I would like to thank the following people: Sue Rowlands, who left Tibbalds and the EOA board in March 2021. Patrick Burns, who stepped down as a co-opted member of the board at the end of September 2021. Neil Smith from Kinetic, who is stepping down from the EOA board today. Steve Flanagan, CSH Surrey, who finishes his tenure on the board on the 1st of May 2022. And David Grimes from AG Parfit & Sons, who is stepping down from the EOA board in June of this year. Thank you all for the energy and enthusiasm that you have shown over the years for the EOA and the wider employee ownership sector. Now, we have opted again this year to run this AGM virtually, as it offers us the opportunity to reach deeper into our membership and stakeholders without the need for travel for everyone. And I'm not sure about you guys, but we have had the weirdest weather up here in East Yorkshire today. There's been sun, there's been snow, and there's now sun again. So I think probably it was a good call to have the EOA AGM virtually this year. Now, it's really important. There's really important parts of this text that I need to read out specifically. So I'll get to that. It's important to note that the EOA's Articles of Association do indicate that a virtual AGM is acceptable. However, it does not specifically detail how such an event should be held. So Lisa Steele, the EOA's company secretary, will be working with the EOA member Field Fisher this year to review and amend the articles to provide clearer direction for any future virtual AGMs. Right, we now have one resolution to vote on. For clarification, it is currently EOA affiliate, partner, and trustee members that have a right to one vote. The notice of the AGM, including full details of the resolution and all the supporting paperwork, was sent with more than 14 days' notice to the main EOA representatives at organisations eligible to vote. The main EOA representative or their proxy received an email from Lisa this week confirming their right to vote today. Now, we recently extended an invitation to all trustee and partner members to apply for the available positions on the EOA board. And following a rigorous shortlisting and interview process, the EOA board nominations subcommittee identified 3 candidates who they believe have the necessary skills and experience to complement the existing EOA board. These individuals are David Robinson from Richer Sounds, Kingsley James from Emperor Design Consultants Limited, and Lindsay Tilley from LDA Design Limited. Now, Kingsley and Lindsay are here today and will be joining us later for the networking session after this event. I have to say that it was a huge testament to the support of the membership base and the work of the EOA that we received such a high caliber of applications for these positions. And I'd really like to thank each and every one of the people who did apply for their time during the selection process. So I'd like to put the resolution, of which a summary is displayed on screen, to the vote. Right, so as we know who is in the virtual room today, and to expedite the counting of votes quickly, we will count the no votes and any abstentions only to ascertain the results. Now, I'll just look off screen just to confirm with Lisa that we have a quorum. We do indeed have a quorum, so that's really great. So, for those who have wish to remain silent and those who are in favor of the vote, can you remain silent and not vote? That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, now all those against, please raise your hand using the raise hand facility on the screen now. Thank you very much. And all those wishing to abstain, please raise your hand using the raise hand facility on the screen now. Fantastic. Well, I'm pleased to say that the ordinary resolution to appoint the documented individuals to the EOA board has been passed. Well, that's fantastic. So thank you for your patience while we did that very important piece of governance. I'm sure you'll all join me in congratulating David, Kingsley, and Lindsay on their appointment to the board for the Employee Ownership Association. Now, as I said, Kingsley and Lindsay will be available along with the other EOA board members for the networking, the virtual networking session straight after today's meeting. Right, well, it has been nearly 10 years since Deb Oxley joined the EOA. In that time, I think we would all agree that she's had a hugely positive impact on the association and on the wider employee ownership sector, whether it's been the many successful events she's hosted, the campaigns that she has spearheaded, or working with the membership, which under her watch has more than doubled. Deb has led the organization with passion, purpose, and an impressive dose of panache. She was a driving force of the Ownership Effect Inquiry, which was the largest study of employee-owned businesses to date, and which in turn led to the Ownership Dividend Report and the subsequent action plan. Deb has been pivotal in the work to increase the understanding of EO within the professional advisors community, and she championed the launch last year of the Ownership Hub, a project to grow more employee and worker ownership in the regions. All this hard work has helped grow not just the membership, but also the EOA's influence within the wider sector, which now looks to have more than 850 businesses within it. It's quite a list of achievements. And so, unbelievably sadly, I'm going to have to say for the very last time, I am absolutely honored to be able to hand over to Deb Oxley, OBE.
Thanks, Chris. This is a very special moment for me as I celebrate my last day with the EOA, and I want to thank both Chris and James for allowing me this time to offer my thoughts on almost 10 years of employee ownership. Trying to capture a decade in a few minutes is obviously not possible, but I'll do my best to highlight some of my reflections on what I think we've achieved together as a community and what I think the future might hold for employee ownership and the EOA. My first reflection is that leading the campaign to establish the legitimacy of employee ownership as a mainstream business model takes a team approach. Whilst employee ownership still remains relatively new to some audiences and not always viewed as the obvious option, it takes a team of voices from many backgrounds to advocate and champion for it. So thank you to all of the business groups and our friends in Scotland and Wales with whom we have partnered, those who supported the Ownership Effect Inquiry and endorsed the findings of the Ownership Dividend Report, and then helped us to champion employee ownership into their own organisations. And thank you to the EOA specialist advisors and the supporter members who have taken the proposition of employee ownership into the mainstream via their events, communications and business relationships, providing credibility and endorsement with new audiences. So my first reflection on 10 years is there really is no I in team, and that Team EOA is bloody awesome. A second reflection is that our campaign relies on authentic data and evidence to prove that employee ownership really is better business. And in our case, this has meant having a diverse group of employee-owned businesses willing to share their stories of how they became employee-owned, what it means to them, and how they bring it to life and sustain it within their own organisations. It also means having up-to-date sector statistics and evidence which quantifies the sector each year, providing insight into its makeup and size, and provides new thinking about where employee ownership might deliver impact in the future. So thank you to the many businesses in the EOA membership who freely offer to share their experiences and stories of employee ownership with others. Thank you also to Ownership at Work, the White Rose Employee Ownership Centre and RM2 for the phenomenal data and evidence you each provide that help us create profile and impact for the sector. And thank you to everyone for championing EO on Employee Ownership Day, for telling your story at the EOA conference or the regional events or in our virtual webinars, and for allowing the EOA to use your stories of transition with the media. This is a truly unique community of like-minded people and businesses that support and encourage each other. Although you're from different sectors and of different sizes, you all have the same shared view that employee ownership is better business. So my second reflection, the EOA community is generous, proud, and often very loud. And my third reflection is that a great team with a great solution needs leadership to bring that offer to life. Since its formation in 1979, it has been the EOA's board, its membership council, and the fabulous team of employees, both current and past, have been the driving force behind our success. And I feel incredibly lucky to have had the opportunity of the last 10 years as one of the custodians of the EOA to build on the previous 33 years, taking Robert Oakeshott's unwavering belief in employee ownership and the EOA's strong foundation to develop a compelling narrative for more employee ownership. During this time, this team of committed individuals have continually innovated, developing the EOA's community through services such as the EO Hub or our regional events, the sector awards, the annual EO Day campaign, and our celebration dinners. They have flexed to respond to the ongoing growth of the sector with new training services, digital engagement, and new regional partnerships. And they have been tenacious in reaching groups who hadn't necessarily connected employee ownership with the economic or social challenges of the day, launching the 1 Million Owners campaign, securing broadsheet and broadcast interviews, and delivering political briefings. My final reflection, therefore, is the EOA really does get stuff done. Together, it is our Team EOA approach, your voice, and the tenacity and ambition to continually campaign and advocate that is why employee ownership is now seen as a serious and important part of the UK economy. At a personal level, I wouldn't change a thing about the last 10 years, with the exception of some of the stupidly early trains that I've had to catch. It's been an immense honour, and I feel incredibly privileged to have been trusted to lead the EOA for the last 6.5 years. So what for the future? I'm 100% sure that this sector is only at the start of its journey to deliver impact, and that its future continued growth is guaranteed as society seeks new ways to deliver a fairer, more resilient and productive economy, as businesses seek to ensure that employees' work is more meaningful and fulfilling, and as our shared responsibility shifts to ensuring we only support businesses that deliver more positive impact and become a force for good. Employee ownership is here to stay. Its relevance has never been more important. And I look forward to watching the EOA under James's leadership continue to be at the forefront of this campaign. So what about me? Some of you have politely asked what I plan to do next. And one thing I've realised is that once employee ownership is in your blood, it's there forever. So I intend to stay connected and involved in this great community as I take up different roles, supporting and encouraging good employee ownership from within businesses, either in a non-executive position or via consultancy work. Thank you, everyone, for an amazing 10 years. And I look forward to catching up with many of you at various events throughout this year and hopefully in the bar at the next EOA conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. I'm sure that the audience, the virtual audience, are giving you a virtual round of applause for your magnificent 10 years, and I can't wait to find you in the bar at the conference and catch up and see how things are going. And I'd just like to say on a personal note how much I have enjoyed working with you over these past few years, and also how incredibly generous you've been with your time and energy as we have gone about recruiting the association's next CEO. So thank you. Well, talking of our next CEO, that's quite a nice segue, because I'm really delighted to introduce you all to James de Levine, who joined us in February 2022. Now, James and Deb have been visiting some of our 550 members over the past few weeks, and it sounds, I've got to say, it sounds like it's been a proper on tour of the EOA community, a real sort of, we need to get t-shirts made up because we're going all over this place and seeing all sorts of people. So it sounds like a great experience. Now, James joins us from Cooperatives UK, where he was the head of the development unit there, and where he was already working with the EOA team on the Ownership Hub project, which launched its first region, South Yorkshire, in June last year. He will join me for a conversation and some questions a little bit later, but for now, I'm very, very pleased to hand over to our new CEO, James de Levine.
Thank you, Chris. I am delighted to be here and look forward to meeting some of you in the networking session later. As Chris has said, I've spent the past few weeks on tour, meeting many employee-owned businesses, supporter members, as well as some of our partners, such as Ownership at Work. I've been inspired by the passion and commitment in these businesses, joined by a common purpose that business and society are better when people have a meaningful stake and say in their work. Joining the EOA as its new chief executive at a time when the business is in extremely good shape, as illustrated by our chair of the Finance and Audit Committee, Joe, we can build for the future and help unlock the potential of people, business, and the economy through employee ownership. Together with our members, the EOA is embarking on an ambitious new strategy that looks to seize the political, cultural, and digital opportunities in front of us to sustain the continued growth of the EO community. And this growth will deliver greater corporate diversity and economic resilience across the UK, positioning EO businesses as a mainstream solution to our economic recovery and long-term future. And in planning for this future and to make the most of this once-in-a-generation opportunity, I think we must first observe and consider the past. So if we cast our mind back 15 years ago, it was MySpace that was popular. Social media was unknown and BlackBerry phones dominated. And for the EOA, it was early in our journey as a membership organisation. It was only 10 years ago that the iPhone started to change the way we interact with the world. Twitter rose to popularity and our daily lives started to become wholly reliant on the internet. The change since then has been phenomenal, with the last 5 years seeing the rapid rise on the on-demand sharing economy, with platforms such as Uber and Spotify and Airbnb becoming ubiquitous and making it easier than ever to outsource tasks in our personal and working lives. Customer and member expectations are shifting as a result, and I think it's fair to say that these have changed dramatically and that we are likely to see exponentially more change moving forward. For the EOA, this means grasping new technologies and approaches to delivering member value. So I'm starting a process, reviewing our digital infrastructure, skills and resources, so that we can pivot to a digital-first strategy that enables us to expand and deepen our member engagement and scope of influence through the collection and use of data. Our digital transformation will enable us to gather new insights and offer highly personalized offers and content through improved segmentation that targets a broad range of audiences within our growing community. And in doing so, the EOA will secure its market position as the go-to place for good employee ownership. I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear that our digital channels will continue to work alongside our unrivaled account management and in-person experiences, making the EOA more connected with its members than ever before. We know that people are driven by the need to belong and connect, and I'm delighted to share that our in-person events program will return later this year, including 3 summer regional networking events in June and our annual conference, which will take place on the 3rd and 4th of October in Liverpool. A substantially larger EO business community also creates new opportunities to broker and facilitate connections at scale. And this core strength of the EOA team will continue as we look for new spaces to act as facilitators of positive connections amongst the EO community, to create powerful and compelling networks across a range of sectors, topics, and geographies. And as we grow, we commit to ensuring our members and prospective members engage with an EOA that remains focused on delivering results that extend well beyond our membership numbers and to demonstrate the positive impact your businesses are having on society. Our plan to better measure these impacts of the sector begin with a new project with Ownership at Work, the Knowledge Programme, through which we aim to transform the UK's understanding of employee ownership and the sector's knowledge about itself. This ambitious research programme will consider 3 core areas: EO performance, to evidence the economic, social and environmental benefits of EO and how these compare with other business models; Good EO, to create benchmarks that enable businesses to routinely access EO-specific good practice from their high-performing peers; and an integrated impact project, which will develop a free-to-use model that enables EO businesses to measure and manage social and environmental impact and help shape the future of EO in the UK. We will need the support of EOA members to gather data, and we'll be asking businesses to contribute some of your time to provide this as our knowledge partners over the next year to deliver this groundbreaking and important work. This data and insight will allow us to tell the story of EO to those we seek to influence, as well as better map the learning needs of our members and the EOA community to make sure that EO is not just measured in terms of the impact of individual businesses, but also regularly demonstrates its impact on individuals and the UK economy. I couldn't be more excited about joining the network and leading the team through the opportunities ahead, and look forward to collaborating with all of you to bring this to fruition. Thanks, Chris.
James, thank you so much. That's really great to hear all of that. We've got the opportunity now to have a bit of a conversation. And rather than us have this strange sort of lectern discussion, why don't we jump down onto the comfy chairs and get a bit more cozy and comfortable. So thank you so much. That's great. We've got a couple of questions that we've already come in.
Right.
I've also got live feed to any questions that anybody wants to send. So this is your opportunity to ask any sort of question you'd like about James, and he'll try his best to answer. He's only been with us 7 weeks, so just to bear that in mind. But James, it's been quite a journey for you to get here. It was quite a rigorous process that we went through, and we had some interesting discussions and really set you some challenges to sort of make your pitch for yourself in this role. Now that you're here and you've got into the business, what do you think attracted you to wanting to be the CEO?
Oh, well, from where I'm sitting, this is one of the most exciting and energized parts of our economy. So I was sitting there from the outside looking at, well, what's the challenge in front of us? And for me, it's about how do we double the size in half the time? And so I was looking around and I said, well, all the key elements are there. We've got a phenomenal team. We've got a supportive board. we've got an engaged and generous membership. We've got aligned stakeholders and influencers all sort of wanting us to succeed. So for me, it's about putting a strategy that helps us unlock the potential of those people, of those businesses, and of this part of the economy, and trying to ensure that those elements are combining to work as effectively as possible together. I also saw that as we recover from the shock and the impacts of the pandemic, that we need greater diversity within our economy. And as EO grows, we're also scaling the opportunity for employees to have more of a stake and say in the economy. And I'm particularly motivated by some of the sectors where we're seeing job opportunities emerge. And so I was in your factory.
Yes, you were, absolutely.
Not so long ago.
We got you working in there. It was great.
No,
it was really good.
It's been great to sort of meet so many members and meet so many employee owners over the last few weeks, and to hear their stories and understand what employee ownership means to them. And I think that's what's really starting to motivate me.
Fantastic. Well, we've got a great question in from Steve Parfitt. Thank you, Steve, for this. It says, what has James found most surprising in his EO tour up to now?
Well, I knew EO covered a broad range of sectors, but it's the different expressions of EO within businesses that I'm particularly interested. So that's the variation. Not one EO business has gone about it the same way. And I guess that bit's because all of these businesses are unique. You know, the people behind them are unique, and it's the voices that are emerging from those businesses. So it's the variation and the rich expressions that I'm experiencing. That's really surprised me, and something I'll carry with me and hopefully act as a really great ambassador and champion as I go forward.
Brilliant. What do you think the opportunities are for the Employee Ownership Association and the employee ownership sector to make a bigger impact in the world?
So I think, first of all, we've got to substantiate that impact. We really need to know what that means. And so I'm really delighted that we're embarking on the Knowledge Programme, which will enable us to collate more and more evidence, particularly as the sector grows and scales.
And there's a lot of anecdotal stuff.
Absolutely. But we need that kind of rigorous approach. Yeah. As the team at Ownership of Work have said, we need to move beyond marking our own homework. And so I think once we can tell that story, our ability to tell the story of employee ownership from within those businesses at scale will unlock conversations with the people that we're trying to influence. Yeah. So I think that's a really key part. I'm also really excited by those employee-owned businesses that are adopting really strong approaches to developing good EO around those sort of three core pillars of employee ownership. Yeah.
Great. We've got a question in from Jeremy Gadd. Thank you, Jeremy, for this. What does James see as threats to growing the sector? Where do you in your first 7 weeks, where do you think there are some challenges to grow it?
I've got a lot to learn in this area, but I have started to have conversations with Jeremy and some of our other special advisors who have said that it's really important that we maintain the integrity of the employee ownership trust model. So there's work to be done there, and Deb made references in her remarks to the work that we've been doing in partnership with the Chartered Institute for Tax. So I think that's one of the key areas. For the EOA, we've also got to make sure that we have a proposition that attracts the growing number of EOBs that are not yet currently in our membership. We want to be the voice, the credible voice of this part of the economy. And in order to do that, we really need to have that relationship with as many members as possible.
You mentioned in your talk there about EO having an impact beyond employee-owned businesses. Just talk us through a little bit about your thinking there.
It's been great touring and meeting lots of members. Lots of the people we've met are pursuing other forms of better business, be it ethical or social or environmental sort of objectives. There's a great number of employee-owned businesses that are paying the real living wage, where that's not the norm in their sector. There's groups that have pursued and achieved the Fair Tax certification or B Corp status. These are all great ways to demonstrate the credibility of employee ownership businesses. But it's been driven from within. So it's from the employees, they're driving this forward. And I think they're really keen to make sure it's their businesses that are a force for good.
Great, thank you. Well, we got a question in from Ewan Hall. Thank you, Ewan, for your question. What are the biggest changes that we will see within the EOA over the next 12 months? That's an interesting question.
It's a great question,
Nice
Ewan.
question, Ewan. Thank you for that.
Well, as I've said in my remarks, we're about to launch the Knowledge Programme. Deb and I, on our tour, have been meeting lots of our closest members, and we're very close to securing the resources we need to bring that to life. but it's the digital transformation. It's the way that members experience us. And one of the key drivers of this transformation is to ensure that our relationship with our members permeates through the business.
Yeah.
We've got so much great content. There's so much great knowledge sharing to take place. So we need to find the channels that enable us to deliver on that. And so I think in the next 12 months, let's hope you in, that members will start to experience that. And we'll also be working with the board and with our membership council to make sure that we prioritize which bits of that we develop and spin up first.
And what steps do you see the organisation taking over the next 6 to 12 months to make that transformation happen?
So we need some support. There's a plethora of services and products available to us to take this step forward. So we need to define what it is we want to achieve really tightly. We've got a great new strategy coming into play. So it's about connecting our digital infrastructure to that strategy. So we really need to define that spec and then go out to the market, secure what it is that we need to do, and then have a really clear roadmap of the products, the services, the operational support that we're going to utilize and build on top of that. And I believe that we can start making some significant gains in the next 3 to 6 months.
Really? That quick? That's fantastic. Goodness me. We've got a question in from Lucy Humphrey. Thank you, Lucy, for this. This is a good one, James. You'll like this. How do you see EO's relationship with Co-ops UK going forward?
Well, I think we're in a really strong place. And I'm not just saying that having come from Cooperatives UK and being able to say that. No, I think we've recognised, both organisations and our networks, that ownership in the economy is a spectrum. And actually, by working side by side and presenting ownership in that spectrum, we're pushing the agenda further up within policymakers and at the national and the local level and at the grassroots level too. So I think the relationship, it's very mutually respectful of one another, and it will only go from strength to strength. And I'm really excited to see the Ownership Hub project develop out of South Yorkshire, and we're already in conversations with a number of other partner areas that are really keen for us to bring that partnership into play. So we do different things, and it's really important to respect those boundaries, but there's really an opportunity to work together and to position ownership as a fundamental narrative over the next few years.
Great, that was a great answer. I hope that was a good answer for you, Lucy. We've got another question in from Tom Latheby. Tom asks, how can the EOA better demonstrate the benefits of EO to the wider economy moving forward?
So I think that comes back to our ability to substantiate the impact that we're talking. So really, really being able to tell the socioeconomic story that EO is delivering for individuals in their business, what it's delivering in terms of productivity and resilience for the business, but also what are the knock-on effects, the consequences of rooting those businesses locally long term. And so I think it's our ability to collate the data. So we really need knowledge partners to step forward over the next few months so that we can start those conversations. And I'm delighted to be, we're working with the team at Ownership at Work. And we'll probably work with others over the future as well to sort of elevate that story going forward.
Okay, we've got questions coming in thick and fast.
This is great.
So keep going. So a question in from Max Palmer Jeffrey. Thank you, Max, for this. How do you see the EOA creating new business opportunities across their members? That's an interesting question.
Business opportunities. I'm not quite sure I'm sort of grasping
I imagine in my mind when I read that, I thought, are there opportunities for businesses to access the services of other EO businesses? So
right.
Excuse me, Max, I may have misread that, but that's my interpretation.
Absolutely. And it's something that Deb and I have experienced so far, on the tour, the grand tour, as it always be known. I think there's a real appetite because I think there's an appreciation at a cultural level, at a values level, that integrating other EO's businesses into your supply chain is a healthy way to further promote and develop the sector. So I can see that absolutely being something that we see more of going forward. And I think the EOA role has a significant role here in convening and connecting those dots as much as possible. And our events program is a way to do that informally, but obviously the team are here and we're open doors. If people want to come to us with ideas, we'll try to follow those up as much as we can.
Great. Okay, question from Aidan Williamson. Thanks, Aidan. What type of additional support from central government does James see as feasible to help grow the EO population?
Well, I really hope that we're able to secure and protect, the EOT status and some of the tax benefits that we've got associated with that. But as more power and funding is devolved to the regions, I do think the narrative and some of our attention will shift to those areas, because there's political leadership in some of these areas that are really supportive of EO, and they're making some really strong political commitments to the space. But they need help in translating what that commitments need into practical action. And initiatives like the Ownership Hub are a really, really practical way of helping bring that to life. So once we've got more of those regions experimenting and piloting different ways to grow employee ownership in their areas, we'll take that evidence back up to sort of central government.
It's almost going up. It's
Absolutely.
down up rather than up down, isn't it? To try and get that message across.
But we'll have to do both. But I do think we're in a position where we've got a strategy emerging and opportunities at both levels.
Okay, great. Two more questions.
Great.
One from myself, one from Neil Hughes. Hi, Neil. How might the EOA keep EO member companies employee-owned, say over 3 years, engaged with the EOA and their offering? So I suppose that's businesses that have gone through the excitement and experience of becoming employee-owned, they've transitioned, and then a couple of years in, how can the association help to keep that momentum going?
Yes, it's only 6 or 7 weeks, but what I've learned from conversations with the team at the John Lewis Partnership through to some newly transitioned businesses, EO is never finished. It's static. It's responsive to the context that businesses find themselves, so they're always responding. And so I think the EOA's role is for us to support businesses to be part of that response, to share what we can in terms of best practice in regards to how different businesses are keeping EO alive. So I think we've got a really relevant role post-transition, but I also think that we are really keen to see as many businesses adopt what we call and define as good EO as possible. Yeah. And again, so we're encouraging people to remain engaged in this community. There are so many new entrants coming in, so the more sort of peer-to-peer learning, the more information and knowledge sharing that can be made possible, the better.
Fantastic. Well, one final question from me. What gets you up in the morning? What drives you? What makes you want to do what you want to do to the best of your abilities?
So apart from my 2 young boys who insist on getting up at 5 o'clock every morning, it's really about the businesses and the employee owners. It's about the difference that this form of business is having in their day-to-day lives. It was at your factory and so many other premises that I've visited over the last few weeks, where I've really heard that actually having a stake and having a say in the business is transformative. It's not tokenistic. It's a really authentic commitment across the business, and people are proud to come into work. And I think we can all benefit from that.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, James, for that. We just fired all those questions at you, so thank you so much. After 7 weeks, I think James has done a really great job there. And just to stress that James will be on one of the networking tables in our virtual area, so you'll be able to jump onto James's table and come along and have a chat with him and ask him some more questions. And I'd just like to say that myself and the rest of the board are really looking forward to working with you over the next few months. Now, James mentioned that it's a core pillar of our development work, so I just wanted to re-emphasize that the knowledge program needs you. We would love to hear from you if you are willing to give 1 day of your time, and that's just 1 day, isn't it? Just 1 day of your time, and perhaps name 1 or 2 named contacts to help the program really make a seismic difference. So if you are able to commit to that, could you please email keeley-led at employeeownership.co.uk, or of course whoever you're in contact with the organization, and they will do the rest and bring it all together. Well, that brings us to the end of the formal part of our Better Business Together 2022 event today. But don't go anywhere, because in a moment I'll stop talking and you will be able to get the chance to grab a virtual seat and speak to the EOA team, the board members, the EOA Membership Council, and of course you'll be able to talk to each other. Before we jet over to the social lounge, I just want to stress that you can get in touch with us outside of this meeting with anything that you want to discuss, or any questions that you've seen, or any questions that you got from the meeting today. So thank you all for attending, and thanks to everyone who's been involved in bringing this session together, with a special mention to Lisa Steele and Laura Withers in the Ops and Finance departments here at the EOA, who have worked their socks off, along with our video company, JJ Media, to make this event happen. And once again, we would like to thank Field Fisher for the advice on all aspects of the governance that we've done today. Right, so get ready to take your seats. You will automatically be returned to the social lounge for your networking session. Once there, take a seat, jump in to continue the conversation, and myself and James and Deb will join you shortly. So thank you very much.